Nick Angstead from Locked On NBA here with round 2 of our Locked On NBA mock draft. We have a brand new order. We ran a tankathon sim just like last week. The Detroit Pistons get the number 1 pick. The New Orleans Pelicans fly all the way up for number 2. They could use some lottery luck, I guess. The Orlando Magic at 3. The Toronto Raptors get the 4th pick. The OKC Thunder yank the Rockets pick number 5 away from them. OKC also gets the 6th pick, and then you can see the rest of the order there if you're watching on YouTube. Also, please subscribe to our Locked On NBA YouTube channel. Our live NBA draft show will be there on draft night, hosted by John Corrales, and Chad Ford will be joining him as well as all of our other Locked On NBA hosts covering their individual teams. So check that out and subscribe to the Locked On NBA draft show that has great content 4 days a week covering all of these prospects and all the stuff that you need to know. So subscribe to that, listen to the podcast, and now let's hear from the number 1 pick, the Detroit Pistons, Kuka Hill of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
What's the deal? Kuka Hill here with the Locked On Pistons podcast, and with the number 1 pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft, the Detroit Pistons select the 6'8", 19-year-old consensus number 1 overall pick, Cade Cunningham from Oklahoma State. After weeks and weeks and weeks of me constantly getting the number 6 overall pick in the lottery simulator on the Locked On Pistons podcast, this week in the Locked On mock draft NBA draft, the Pistons move up to number 1, and we're able to get Cade Cunningham, which will obviously make everybody happy. We finally get some luck for the first time in our history, so, there's not really anything else to say. Cade Cunningham to the Detroit Pistons, slot him right next to Killian Hayes, along with the rest of the young core of Saddiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart. At least in this week's Locked On Network's mock draft, the Pistons' losing season, the Pistons' take session that went on for the last month or so, all was worth it because they ended up moving up to get the number 1 pick. So maybe this is a sign for what's to come in the future. Hopefully so. Only we can pray and wish. Hopefully, please.
Hey everyone, Jake Madison here, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast, and Wednesdays on Locked On NBA. The Pelicans jump up 8 spots and with the 2nd pick take Jalen Suggs, guard out of Gonzaga. I think Evan Mobley might be the 2nd best player in this draft, but I absolutely cannot take a center with the need to add complementary pieces next to Zion Williamson. And Suggs is exactly what the Pelicans need, a decisive playmaker and creator which could help offset the loss of Lonzo Ball. He's going to fit right in as a ball handler next to Zion and Brandon Ingram. Plus, he's also a dynamic scorer. He has a good frame and does well with contact at the rim, giving the Pelicans another downhill threat. His 3-point shot is a bit iffy, but has significant potential to improve in that area. And most importantly, he's an excellent defender. One-on-one, off-ball, he's a proven player in those areas. David Griffin identified 3 needs for the Pelicans: basketball IQ, toughness, and shooting, and Suggs fits all 3 of those. So for more on Zion Williamson and the rest of this Pels team, be sure to listen to the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
Philip Rossman-Reich here, the host of Locked On Magic, with the 3rd pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft. The Orlando Magic select Jalen Green. The way this draft played out with Cade Cunningham going 1 and Jalen Suggs going 2 gives the Magic much the same choice that they would probably have if they were picking 2nd, and it's a choice that is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. Between Jalen Green and Evan Mobley, you have 2 very different but very good building block pieces for a young Orlando Magic team that needs a star to really center themselves around. I think there's a good argument for either player between Evan Mobley and Jalen Green, and it's going to be one of the great debates as we get deeper and deeper into this draft process. However, I decided to go with Jalen Green for one simple reason. A, the Magic have not had a 20-point scorer from the perimeter, a wing 20-point scorer, since Steve Francis in 2005. I think Jameer Nelson got close in 2009, but he didn't quite get there, and he's a point guard anyway. This league is centered around wing scorers. To win in this league with the 3-point shooting, with the creation that's necessary, the center position is not what it once was. And while, yes, I know Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic are your likely 1-2 in the NBA MVP voting, the bottom line is, and the Magic learned this with Dwight Howard too, as much as they learned it with Shaquille O'Neal, you still need wings to win. And I think in this league especially, having a wing as a guy that you build your whole team around is ultimately the way you go. And that's why I'm taking Jalen Green with the 3rd pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft.
Hey, it's Sean Woodley here from Locked On Raptors to make the 4th overall pick in this week's Locked On NBA mock lottery draft. The Raptors have gotten double lucky this week. Not only did they jump up to number 4 from number 7 in total odds, but one of the jewels of the draft has fallen to their clutches at number 4. With the way the lottery went, the 2 teams ahead needed guards over bigs, and as a result, Evan Mobley is still sitting there at number 4, and I will gleefully take him on behalf of the hypothetical Raptors here. to add to the Toronto Raptors core going forward here. Mobley is a huge defensive prospect. We know what he did in the tournament. We know what he did all season long, defending the paint, getting out on the perimeter, using his mobility at USC. That's going to fit perfectly into what the Raptors want to do on defense. And just think about a hypothetical front court of OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Evan Mobley. All guys with all defense upside. OG probably would have made all defense this year if he didn't miss so much time with COVID and injury. Good luck scoring on those three guys, with Fred VanVleet also pestering at the point of attack. This would be a dream scenario for the Raptors. Do I think they're going to get as lucky on draft night if they do happen to jump up to number 4 in the lottery as to have Mobley fall to them? No, it's going to require basically this exact lottery orientation in order for them to get Mobley at number 4, and even then, who knows? Maybe the teams ahead go best player available. It's hard to say, but this is a dream scenario. You can only play the hand that's dealt, and the hand that's been dealt to the Raptors is Evan Mobley at number 4. It's an incredible fit. It's exactly what the Raptors have needed after watching Aaron Baines play center for the team most of this season, and it's a sight for sore eyes to see a high-level defensive center prospect joining the ranks of the Raptors here in this lottery mock draft. I'll have more breaking down Mobley and all the other top prospects on Locked On Raptors over the coming weeks, so be sure to tune in.
The Oklahoma City Thunder are on the clock at pick number 5 in the Locked On NBA mock draft. This pick comes via the Houston Rockets. This is good twofold. Number one, Houston loses their pick, and thus it sets the rebuild back, making their future picks that are owed to Oklahoma City even more valuable. Number two, the Thunder get a top 5 pick in this year's draft class, which is a 5-man draft, and they do get the last man on that board, Jonathan Kuminga of G League Ignite. But still, Kuminga has immense potential. Not only will I think he'll be an elite defender in the NBA, I think that he'll be an elite defender almost from day one. So having an elite trait is very good if I can guarantee that in the top 5. But he also has immense potential on the offensive end. He can get to the rim at will. Not many people will get in the way of his frame when he's going downhill attacking the rim. And I still believe in his upside as a jump shooter. I think that the percentages are a bit flawed, but he looks comfortable, he looks confident, and eventually those shots will probably fall for the 18-year-old. He has the kind of potential to be a two-way star in this league, and the Thunder have the time. They have the patience and the ability to let him grow that many teams are not going to have. That's the big downfall of Kuminga, is that you need to give him time. He's incredibly raw, but luckily the Thunder are in a stage where they can afford to let him learn and let him grow throughout his time in the NBA. Luckily, the Thunder are also on the clock at pick 6, and we'll see where they go at pick 6. The Oklahoma City Thunder are back on the clock at pick 6. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. After picking Jonathan Kuminga at 5, we're back on the clock at pick 6, and we have our pick of the litter. This is supposed to be a 5-man draft, but the Thunder get their selection of who they think will be best out of the rest of the draft class. And for me, you have to go with pick 6 with Keon Johnson out of Tennessee University. For me, he has the biggest upside of this remaining draft class. He has the chance of, besides the top 5, he has the best chance to become a superstar outside that top 5. Keon Johnson is special. He can be a go-to scorer in this league. He can do it on both ends of the floor, but specifically the offensive end, which really counterbalances the draft pick made at pick 5 with Jonathan Kuminga. That duo mixed with SGA, mixed with Lou Dort, Pokusevski, and everyone else on the Thunder roster sets the foundation for a really good team and a really good rebuild. The Thunder are in a great spot now after cashing on the Rockets pick and letting their rebuild get a step back, and now getting Keon Johnson, who could be a legitimate star at the NBA level. They still are not done, though. With a multitude of second-round picks, the Thunder could buy back into the late first round, or they could cash in on a few underrated second-round talents in this year's draft class. Things set up perfectly in this simulation of the draft for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Hopefully it's that way on June 22nd, whenever the real thing happens.
Hey everyone, Evan Dammerl here, co-host of Locked On Cavs, and with our pick in version 2.0 of the 2021 Locked On NBA mock draft, we took Jalen Johnson out of Duke on behalf of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Jalen Johnson is an intriguing player. If he's lasted the entire season with Duke, and maybe if they made a serious tournament run, he might be more of a top 5 pick, so this is more of a steal for the Cavs at our position. And his offensive upside, especially in terms of wing production, is something the Cavs really need. What's even more intriguing, though, is his ability as a playmaker, which is something the Cavs need in the worst way, because they cannot rely on Colin Sexton to playmake at this point. Darius Garland's shown flashes, but the Cavs will just lean on a playmaking by committee approach, with Johnson likely being one of the primary ball handlers in Cleveland's offense. Sure, there are a little bit of concerns with his commitment to Cleveland after he quit on his high school program and Duke in 2 consecutive years, but maybe playing professionally and being around adults and being in a system where it'll probably be tailor fit to him on offense may keep Jalen Johnson engaged, and he could be a sneaky favorite to win Rookie of the Year next season. Hear about this and more on Locked On Cavs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Wes Goldberg with the Locked On Warriors podcast here, picking for the Warriors at number 8. And what the Warriors need are not only immediate contributors, but guys who can space the floor and play make. And so while guys like Scotty Barnes are on the board, who can certainly defend and have versatility and play make a little bit, while there's a guy like Moses Moody and Giddey that are on the board who have a ton of upside, I am going with Davion Mitchell, the guard out of Baylor here at number 8. Not only is this somebody who can walk in and contribute immediately, he could score at an NBA level, he can space the floor, he can make plays for others, and for a team that is always so desperate for offense when Steph Curry is on the bench, any bit of juice, any kind of playmaking and scoring is going to be helpful for them. And so Davion Mitchell is the pick here at number 8 for the Golden State Warriors.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich again, the host of Locked On Magic, back with you for the 9th pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft. With the 9th pick in the mock draft, I'm going with Scotty Barnes of Florida State. Yes, the Orlando Magic have plenty of big wing forwards like Chuma Okeke and Jonathan Isaac, and they could very well find themselves stuck back in the same spot that they were with Aaron Gordon when they weren't sure who was a 4, who was a 3, and how to play them all together. But the bottom line is this: the Orlando Magic need talent. They need the best players available on the board, and Scotty Barnes is the best player on my board. He's a guy that can defend really well coming out of that Florida State system, and he's a guy that has proven that he can play a little bit on the ball and be a little bit of a playmaker. And I like that, especially coming off my bench with scoring guards like Cole Anthony and RJ Hampton, likely with that second unit next year. Barnes is not someone that's going to get too much in the way of players like Okeke and Isaac and their development, especially if they are the eventual starters on the team. And I think Barnes can still grow and become kind of a versatile wing player for the Magic too. I really like Scotty Barnes' versatility. I like his defensive chops. I think he will fit in really well with the Orlando Magic. And while the team still would desperately need some shooting, they need talent more. And I'm going to go with the most talented player on my board, and that's Scotty Barnes.
So close to having Scotty Barnes fall to us at number 10, but it wasn't meant to be. The darn Orlando Magic take him away. Matt George here of the Locked On Kings podcast. Once again, the Kings in the 10th spot here in our second mock draft. And after the last pick I made, there weren't too many who were a fan of that pick. So what I did was I fired my old assistant general manager, my cat, and I replaced him with my bird here. So the new assistant general manager and I have decided to take Moses Moody, the shooting guard out of Arkansas, with the 10th overall pick in this second mock draft, going for best talent available here. He's at a crowded position as of right now. Again, if I could trade the draft pick, if the rules allowed it, I would do so. But Moses Moody is not a bad consolation prize at all. Has a high upside, a good scorer, very athletic player. Excited to see what he could do with a young core in Sacramento. I don't know if he's an exact win now type player that the Kings are looking to add to their roster, but overall, a solid young piece with upside. Sacramento's talent development in the past hasn't been the best for players like Moody, but that's okay. I'm now in charge of the team, so we'll be sure to fix that problem.
I'm Walker Mail of the Locked On Hornets podcast, and today with the second weekly mini mock draft we've been doing on the Locked On Podcast Network, the Charlotte Hornets were granted the 11th overall pick. Last week it was the 12th overall selection. This week it more closely resonates what reality states we're going to get here in Charlotte. And with the 11th overall pick, we decided to go with Alperen Şengün, the big guy out of Turkey. He's a strong, big-bodied guy, listing at about 6'10", someone with an excellent feel for the game. His footwork is impeccable. He's an excellent passer out of the post, also has the ability to put the ball on the deck a little bit. Some of the weaknesses is his lack of athleticism. He's not the most fleet of foot. Defensively, he's able to get by in some cases because I think he's got good anticipatory defense, but even when he knows where the ball is going to be, his lack of athleticism doesn't allow him to be there. Sometimes he does anticipate it well enough, and he can be in the right spot. But bottom line, you're not drafting him to be a rim protector, and that's something the Charlotte Hornets team needs. But also, they just need size, and James Borrego clearly was never happy with his 5 spot and hasn't been for the last 3 years. He told you as much in one of the post-game availabilities that he had later on in the year. I expect them to fully move on from Cody Zeller and Bismack Biyombo and address the big man spot via the NBA draft or NBA free agency. We're going to do it here in the draft with Alperen Şengün, the big guy out of Turkey. Tell us what you think. I'm on Twitter at Walker Mail. My co-host is on Twitter at Nod of the Scribe. And our show handle is on Twitter at Locked On Hornets. Thank you so much for listening. Hope to catch you on an episode soon.
This is Jeff Garcia with Locked On Spurs here to give you a quick react to the second go-around right here on the Locked On NBA Mock Draft version 2.0. This time the Spurs did land at number 12, unlike the first mock draft right here on the Locked On Network. And Locked On Spurs picked Josh Giddey. That's right, they're going international once again. No shocker here. The Australian guard. Look, 6'8", 210 pounds. He is a terrific ball handler. He's a good passer. He rebounds well. He has a high basketball IQ. I think for the guy at his size, I think he'll fit well in with the Spurs. Now, I get it. Another guard. Why are you going to bring in another guard to a team already stacked with guards? Well, simply put, I think this is a guy that the Spurs simply could not pass on. At least the Locked On Spurs, that is, could not pass on for San Antonio. You see just a lot of flashes, Manu-esque style play in him. Dynamic, very highlight worthy. Now his shot is going to need to get development, and I think the Spurs coaching staff, Chip England, can do that. But in this mock scenario, I just want to have a little fun here, add a little excitement. I think with the Spurs lack some time, it's just somebody on that court that can just create much more opportunities for the Spurs, and I think that's where Josh Giddey gets in for San Antonio, at least in this Locked On mock draft. Look, it probably get some backlash about the Spurs drafting a guard right here in this mock, but nevertheless, you cannot pass on a talent. And like they say in the NBA draft, unless you get that number 1 pick, you want to draft best available. And in this case scenario, Josh Giddey was best available. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast.
In the second Locked On NBA / Locked On Podcast Network NBA mock draft, the Indiana Pacers select James Bouknight from the University of Connecticut. The sophomore guard was electric for UConn this past season, scoring 18.7 points per game, 45% shooting, great slasher inside the arc, great shiftiness to get open under the rim, has some nice step backs in his game. Decent shooter, has nice peripheral stats that suggests he'll be a little bit better of a shooter than the percentages suggests in college. Just an overall good self-creator as a guard. And the Pacers really could use some potential at the guard position. Some of their other younger guards haven't really panned out in terms of Aaron Holiday, and some of their other guards, TJ McConnell, for example, could enter free agency this season. Adding guard depth, never a problem, especially guys like Bouknight, who can score really well on their own, and he's 6'5", so maybe in the potential to grow into a wing scorer in the future in his career. So the Indiana Pacers select James Bouknight 13th in the second Locked On NBA / Locked On Podcast Network NBA mock draft.
Wes Goldberg here with the Locked On Warriors podcast, and with the number 14 pick, the final pick in our mock draft lottery, the Warriors take Franz Wagner out of Michigan. This is a 3-and-D wing who can contribute right away, and what the Warriors are looking for is just that. Guys who can play right away and help a team that it aims to get back into the playoffs after missing the postseason for 2 years straight. And what Wagner can do is space the floor. He can play make. He plays competitive, high IQ defense, and that's everything that the Warriors need. No, Wagner does not have the upside of being a go-to scorer, but the Warriors don't need that. They already have Steph Curry. Klay Thompson is coming back. They're looking for a guy who can come off the bench and just be helpful. And I think Wagner at 14 is just that.